All right, welcome to another episode of the Solos podcast, episode 12. Hard to believe we're rocking and rolling, and it seems like each one is significant in its own way. I want to lean into today's episode, as we always do, by reflecting on episode 11. And I just want to say, if you haven't seen episode 11, go watch that. That was a mind blower for me, and I think you could see us both processing as we were talking through it. And we were talking about, yeah, drawing our beliefs and our knowing in particular around things that seem so, this is just the way they are. And among the many things, it was death. We talked a lot about death and the black hole matrix. And yeah, you really got me thinking about how much of our reality is programmed. And I'm able to see it from a more cosmic perspective. I still have many questions, and that's why we're doing this. But yeah, I think at one point we said like that. I think you identified it as the head of the parasite. And we've been talking about parasite for this whole season of podcasts. So it's cool to kind of arrive at this is what it is. And then, yeah, we left off with the Kabbalah systems and Doth and Sephiroth. And I know that we definitely want to hit Jesus's teachings on
Mhm.
trees that don't bear fruit, and it's time to definitely get into that. So
Mhm.
we also hit like mathematics and the 12 base number system, and that was blowing my mind. So
Yeah.
yeah, what else would you reflect on from last episode so we can segue into episode 12 here?
No, that's exactly what I had written down. I think the question of is the pain worth it? It's kind of like at the beginning we framed it as pain and discipline, and are we actually attached to punishing ourselves with pain or to validating ourselves with pain or like thinking pain is an inevitable part of the process when it doesn't necessarily have to be in the same way. Again, it's nuanced, but I think I want to bring all of this back to that kind of loop and that thread of like as we move forward, like we're going into 10 and 1 and the year of 10 and like binary code, and that's going to lead us into the Bible verses, which actually I was telling Debra, my wife, how we were going into these Bible verses beforehand, and we were finding these different translations, and I was getting all pissed off and like I couldn't, and she got all excited because she's, for anyone that doesn't know, this is like her realm. She does translations with the Aramaic Bible. She's very well versed with understanding Aramaic, and so she's like, "Give me the verses. I'm gonna look them up." And she gave us these like slides where she translated them.
Thank you, Deborah.
So we have another layer of kind of being able to go into that. And it's interesting because these Bible verses are very similar to a lot of the things we've been talking about in these other episodes, which is uh, manifestation and belief versus knowing, bearing the fruits of our labor, right? And now we're getting to this concept of how we actually can almost like ripen and find the ripe fruits off of our tree that we're bearing, but at the same time we then have to reckon with the death process that is naturally there, that we're going to shed as we kind of get closer to bearing that fruit. But we also have to reckon with the programs that have been keeping us from bearing positive fruit before.
Mm.
So it's like we're then now seeing this as the Sephiroth and the Dot system and the Kabbalistic system and um, the black hole agenda, as you're saying. It's all intertwined, and it leads into this a very interesting nuanced question that I'm now seeing, which is like the idea of inevitability. And like in another episode, we defined control as uh, trying to avoid the unavoidable, and love is accepting what is inevitable. But I'm seeing like what if we're trying to pinpoint what is like living a life based off of these inverse tree systems, what would that look like necessarily? And what are the types of philosophies that people would show up with if they don't realize that they're, putting death on a pedestal or putting pain on a pedestal. They're not saying, I like sacrifice, let me play in sacrifice. It's like, what are the very common kind of patterns that we see that represent these inverse systems coming through in our consciousness? And so I'll
Mm,
just leave that with us accepting something that is inevitable that doesn't actually have to be inevitable. That's like the black hole right there. It's like
yeah,
this thing is inevitable and we're accepting it as inevitable, but is it actually inevitable in the way that we've been told it is? So it's that two-sided kind of line that we're drawing here. So I'll
right.
give you the floor.
Yeah. Couple things, and I want to take a stab at answering that question. So, the Bible verses I'm excited to get into, and I don't, not sure if this needs to be said, but we'll say it anyway, that we're not like super religious or anything. But the thing that I like about the Bible is that it addresses a lot of the inner conflicts. If you like, I'll read it from time to time or tune into some verses, and they'll hit me in different ways because of the life experiences that I'm going through. So I think that's the big value of it for me. And then to give Deborah a shout out, like her work, I think, and you can correct me or guide this a little bit further, is that she's seeking the truth with all these ancient manuscripts because there's things that get lost in translations with the English version or any other language that's not really what was meant, or like it's purposely being hijacked, or maybe it wasn't purposeful, but there's like some mistranslation in it that means something totally different, and the work that she's doing is super incredible. And also give a shout out to episode 3. We had the feminine perspective on the Solos podcast. So if anybody's interested to check Deborah out, she's there. And then maybe we can also link her page with some of the work that she's sharing there. So,
Yeah, we will
uh,
for sure.
yep. Yeah, and I'm also glad that you mentioned about pain because we talked about like my relationship with cold showers and yeah, does pain have to be part of the formula? So it's all this is all good to bring to a head today. And the way I want to answer your question, the first thing that came up, and I'm kind of in that mode with like, I don't know, I'm just trusting this, but something that feels inevitable is like planning for retirement, like having a 401k and like, well, you're gonna die and you're gonna work at this job for X amount of years and then you can enjoy your life and then you can have this, this free income that's coming in. So um and it hasn't even been that long. I think it's only been a generation or two before us that like planning for retirement or retirement has been a thing. So you can see that it's been, these agendas kind of stack on top of each other, and they're coming up with new ways to reinforce like this is the way it is, to the point where you and me have been born into this life, and like the retirement project had already been set up, and we've been exposed to it so much that we just feel like that's what it is. Like
Mhm.
that's what you should be doing.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, something about that felt off to me right away when I was younger. I was always like, I'm not gonna be retiring. Like, I'm gonna be doing something that I love that I don't
Mm,
have to like stop doing. And people were like, "Oh yeah, you just don't get it. You're just young. You just don't understand it." And it's like, "Nah, fuck you." Like it's like feeling that resistance to the inevitability, I think. And so we have that as like a kind of a programmed black hole inevitability, because it is if we think of the implications around that, what you just said right there, there's all of these other things that then get condensed into our obligations. We then think we have to have money set aside for that moment in time, that we have to go through these specific steps to get to that point. Like it's like we start planning for the future like right now, and it's all based off of this thing that we're told is the way to go, right? It's like, well, this is just how things are. This is like this is how things work. And so it's accepting the inevitability, almost accepting the falseness of that inevitability.
It's out of fear, it's out of lack, right? Because the question is, well, if I don't plan for retirement, then I'll be screwed. I'll be up a tree. Like, who's going to take care of me?
Mhm.
When it's for generations before that, it hasn't even been a thought. Like, somebody manifested that as a out of fear. I don't know if they did it out of, for a fear tactic purposely to scare people, but there is profitability that comes from it that companies benefit from because this is such a prevalent thing in today's society. But it's it's good to know at one point, like it wasn't even a thought. Like
Hmm.
people just lived
Hmm.
and it was fine in that
Hmm.
system.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. So like, how? Because we were just talking about our like emotional patterns and how we can think that there's something inevitable with those emotional patterns because it's so ingrained in our body and in our identity that then when these emotions come up, we kind of latch on to them. And it creates this timeline of perceived inevitability, right? So I'll use the example of mine as like if the technology I'm uploading a video or record a video and it like it glitches out and it glitches out hard, like the video will get stuck in limbo and I won't be able to upload it anywhere. And before I would get really 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 pissed off and I would like grind myself into it and I'd flare up and get angry and I'd want to throw my phone and I'd want to yell and I'd have to like get all this anger out. And I've gone through this transition where I don't feel like I have to do that anymore. And I'm noticing how I was making the anger worse because I was grabbing onto it and trying to force this timeline in when it was actually the universe and God saying, like, trying to get me to listen deeper. And so, like, this most previous time, it's like, oh, this isn't working. Okay, I guess I'm just not supposed to do this right now. I guess I'm not supposed to do this today. Didn't
Mm.
even focus on it that day. Didn't even do it again the next day. And then I got the guidance. It was like, okay, now you can work on it. And it was totally fine. It wasn't stuck anymore. It's like, so if I'm perceiving that moment as the AI, internet, sentient overlord, computer fucking with me, then it's gonna like pull me into that feeling of power, of justified anger, of, but if I'm actually questioning, like, well, is this actually just God talking to me in another way and I'm perceiving it as this thing? Then it's allowing me to say, well, why would I be getting communicated to like that? And what would God want out of this moment? Not for me to just jam myself into it, but to take a step back, to trust in the time and the timing and say, okay, where am I supposed to go to next? Let me find the next step. So there's an accepting of inevitability that happens with all of those different processes. And I think that's what the black hole kind of represents. Because if we accept the inevitability of justified rage and anger, that's where people get pulled into the supervillain archetype. And they need to create destruction to justify all of the wrongdoings of society.
Yeah, that's all very well said. I feel like there's a sovereignty point of discussion here with like when you allow that thing to become you, then you're almost acting on its behalf. That and it's very parasitic the way I'm describing it. And it's almost like we're letting it win, right? It's like it's becoming me and I'm acting out of it. Now maybe you or I have to go through that a number of times to feel what it feels like, right? And then it's just cycled through so many times where, we've been asking for another way, like show me how this is valuable. Like I trust and I have faith that the anger and the craziness that I feel right now is actually for my highest good. There's a lesson in here for me. There's an opportunity. I remain open to what that is, even though I can't see it for the life of me. Like show me what it is. And then that becomes a level of mastery with continuing to get examples and experiences where that is the case. And then feeling like we're closer to, not closer, we actually have a choice with how we're responding to it.
Yeah.
Whereas sometimes, like in the past, I haven't felt like I had a choice. It just feels so shitty. And it feels like I want to stay in the shittiness. And it feels very debilitating to now I'm able to separate myself from that thing, still feel shitty, but I'm trusting that there's something of value. And I feel like I'm working through that space more quickly, but it's not a speed thing. It's just more of a peace of mind. And then the answer, I'm able to receive the value, even if there isn't value, I'm able to kind of move through it in a way that that feels better to
Yeah.
me.
Yeah, and it's not like we have the choice between feeling good and feeling shitty and we say, "Oh, we're going to feel shitty this time." It's like it's already there. It's already stuck in our cells. It's stuck in our trauma, in our emotions. So, because we've set the intention and the devotion to build that organic tree of life and receive that true fruit, then we have to do that from the actual organic tree. We can't grow fruit from a poisonous root system, from a poisonous tree, and then expect it to create different results that next time. And that's where people get caught up in the spiritual manifestation realm, is that
Mm,
they think they can go right to manifesting their most pretty perfect, like unicorn and rainbows timeline. And we get doses of it, we get hits, but we've been pushed. We've chosen to be in such an imbalanced state. We've chosen to take on these reverse systems and the parasite that we are then trying to create fruit from a poisonous root system. And God's like, oh, hold on. You're asking for this thing, and I'm trying to show you where to look, and you're then like you don't want to look at it and you just want to manifest this stuff, and it's like you're manifesting poisonous fruit. The
mm,
fruit may look like fruit, but it is poisonous. So we have to go through a process of breaking down that poisonous tree, creating a new root system, planting new seeds, and then building that new tree back up. So it's a process. It's
mm.
a fucking process. And that's why people are in this middle lane thinking they're manifesting all these things when they're actually just reaching for the poisonous fruit. And they're reveling in the orgasmic taste of how amazing it is in that fleeting moment. And then it's gone. Gone again.
So is this the allegory of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, or should we get into some Bible verses here? I want to see where we go with this here. I'm
Yes,
excited.
we will. We will. So we're going to get into some Adam and Eve because clearly this is connected to Adam and Eve, right? It's like she's eating a poisonous apple, and that then is the thing that takes Adam and Eve out of the Garden of Eden. So um, the apple, I'm going to give my own kind
Yeah,
of
yeah.
uh, ideas right now, and then we'll go into these specific verses. The apple represents a field of time. It represents a toroidal motion, a toroidal pattern. If you look at the shape of an apple, it is in the shape of a toroid. And so the apple represents timelines. It represents a time matrix. So if you're working with a poison apple, that means you're working with a poisoned time matrix. And that if a um, service to self being is trying to give a poisonous apple, a poisonous fruit to someone, they are trying to lure them into that poison apple network, which would be the negative timelines, the negative tree system is what that would be. And so, uh, what what kind of computer are you on right now?
Mac.
What is it? What else is it called though?
It's an apple.
Oh, and what is the logo of that apple?
It's an apple with a bite taken out of it.
A bite taken out of it. Just like Eve taking a bite out of the apple, out of the tree of knowledge. What do we have access to through this device? Knowledge, endless information. We are taking bites out of the poison apple network by unknowingly participating in it through our agreements with Apple, through our agreements with this technology, because this technology is all based off of the um, I'm trying to think of what to call it. It's the service to self matrix. That's what we're pointing to right now. It's the matrix that the parasite has created. So this matrix looks an awful lot like the organic matrix, But this service to self matrix is what is creating poisonous fruit. It's creating poisonous realities that maintain the loops of bearing poisonous fruit. So if you think of being in a Garden of Eden, Eve eating a poisonous apple, that is the service to self knowledge, the knowledge of good and evil, of separation, of binary separation, is what pushed Eve and Adam out of the Garden of Eden. So it pulled them from a state of unity into the poison apple network, which is the idea of good versus evil. Because if there is good versus evil, then that is the loop of the poison apple network. The idea of evil is what perpetuates this poison apple network because evil is the apple that people are biting from. Hold on, let me take a breath. Let me take a
Hmm.
breath. Okay. Any questions from there? Anything that comes up?
Is that polarity? Is that what we're talking about? So it's almost like the creation of polarity, good and evil, good versus evil.
Yeah, polarity, but it's the creation of inverted polarity because polarity doesn't just mean good and evil. Like here's where the poison apple and the poison tree shows itself. The idea that good can't exist without evil. Evil is a necessary part of good. That is a lie. That is false. That is the parasite.
Mm.
So if you're taking a bite out of that tree of knowledge, then you are becoming that tree. You are bearing poisonous fruit. So we look at all of these people who are in righteous justice and righteous anger, and they're wanting to make change, and they're fighting. They're in the fight of good versus evil. They're in, and again, this gets
Yes.
nuanced because we have service to self, we have service to others, and we've broken down how that is represented in polarity because it's all a function of light. It's all the way that light spins, which creates service to others versus service to self. But evil is a very specific concept that is tethered to the black hole agenda. It's what goes hand in hand with the concept of death and with the concept of the black hole being inevitable.
It's interesting. I could feel my perspective shifting of like thinking that the service to self beings are evil, but they're the ones who have created the concept of evil themselves.
Yep. It's a part of the plan, it's a part of the agenda. Evil perpetuates more of that frequency of evil because you're separating yourself from it.
Yeah. So am I to accept that those beings are not evil then, even though they've created the system of evil?
That they are not evil, that they are making choices that polarize their light in a certain way, but they are not separate from God. Because
Yeah.
that's the poison apple network, that something can be separate from God when there can be nothing that is separate from God. All is of or nothing is. So the religious paradigms, the societal paradigms that hold this knowledge of good and evil are then perpetuating this poisonous fruit.
Yeah. Okay. I'm with you.
Okay.
So yeah, what do we do with
Yeah.
this information?
So we're gonna go into these Bible verses. So when Joshua and I were looking for these Bible verses, I had heard this in a certain way, and then when we were looking for it, there were these different translations of it, and some of the way that it was translated was making me feel very angry. I was feeling very justified in my anger, and I was like, this is perfect because this is the exact example of what Jesus is literally referring to in these verses is how they were translated. And that is a representation of the metaphor that is in the verses. So I'm pulling it up right now because Debra also made these cards for us
Cool.
to. Okay, so okay, okay. I'm gonna share. This is my screen. Okay. You can see it.
It's still loading on my end. Sometimes it takes a second.
Still loading. Okay, there we go.
Okay, yeah, we're up.
Okay. All right. So I'm trying to figure out how to explain this exactly. Where to go first. Um,
Maybe just a reference to how did you choose this one or how did this come up originally?
yeah, so this originally came up because I was in this period of faith in my life, and I was understanding what faith was, and I was getting these kind of like sermons, these like Christian like sermons on YouTube, and he brought up this verse, and the guy who did it, his name is Michael Todd. The video series is called Crazy Faith. We'll include it in the show notes. Um, so this is a verse where Jesus performs some act, and these people start questioning him, and he then responds by asking them, well, do you have faith? And the way that it's then translated turns it into this idea about power and this idea about control and death rather than what the metaphor is actually teaching. So what happens is Jesus is with these apostles or disciples, and he comes upon a fig tree, and so he sees that this fig tree, it doesn't have figs on it, and it's not bearing figs. It's not bearing fruit. So he says that the fig tree isn't going to exist anymore, and he commands it because it's not able to bear fruit. And so then the apostles and the disciples are kind of like, well, how could you do that? How could you say that this just no longer can be in existence? Like, isn't this God too? Don't you have reverence for all of God's life? And he responds, and he basically just says, do you not have faith in God? That taking something out of existence when it is not bearing the proper fruit, that is an aspect of faith in God as well. And that if you're looking at something and it's not bearing fruit and it's not able to, and you still let that stay in existence, are
Hmm.
you actually devoted to what faith is? Are you actually devoted to what the truth of God is? Okay, so there's a few different translations. And I'm going to leave the links to these websites uh, that Debra used because it's connected to the Aramaic Bibles. And if anyone's interested, you can, explore through it and kind of find these different translations. So I'm not going to read each one, but uh, so this is multiple English translations. So it says, he saw a certain fig tree from afar, which had leaves on it, and he came to it. But when he came, he found on it only the leaves, for the time was not for figs. And so these different translations go on to say, he came up to this fig tree to see if he could find anything on it. When he found nothing on it except leaves, because it was not the time for figs. So
Like
they
it was like it was out of season almost, right? Is that what they're saying?
almost, yeah. So that's what's going to be broken down in the
Yeah.
next part.
Okay.
Is that like that's how when we were finding the English translations on it without the connection to the original Aramaic language, that's what it sounded like, right?
Right.
It's like
Hmm.
it was like, oh, Jesus came upon this fig tree and realized that it was not the season for figs. And then the second line says, so then he cursed the fig tree.
Right.
We'll get to that in a second, but it's already displaying, oh, he comes upon and he sees it's just not the season for figs, so he then decides to curse the fig tree. So that already is if we take it at that surface level, that's displaying a sense of victimhood, of righteous power, of entitlement. So in Aramaic, in Mark 11, where this verse is, it basically is it's saying because it was not the time for figs. So what the words actually are in this verse is time, season, period, but not the time for figs. In Aramaic and Hebrew, time doesn't mean calendar time. It means the right phase or the correct moment or the period when something has the authority to function.
Right.
So whether or not it can be ripe in that moment determines if it's the time for it or not. So
Hmm.
with this other person that Deborah works with, Dale Allen Hoffman, her mentor in this, he always talks about how the word evil in Aramaic can also be translated to not ripe. So that it's translated to evil, and evil takes on all these associations, but what it's actually saying in Aramaic is not ripe. That it's not ripe and it can't be ripe. It's either underripe or it's overripe. I think it's actually more towards overripe that it's it's not possible for it to be ripe because it's just going to hit being overripe every single time.
I might be stealing your thunder with something you might share, but I also in my research found that fig trees bear fruit and then the leaves appear after. So if you're seeing leaves on the tree, it implies there should be fruit there. So that's why he came to the conclusion that there were leaves on the tree, but like, where is the fruit? There's no fruit to go along with it.
There
So it
you
wasn't
go.
bearing
I
fruit.
Yeah, I didn't
Yep.
know that. I was not aware of that.
Yep.
So yeah, and it's like it's exactly what yeah, that's spot on. So it's like this thing looks like it should be providing nourishment, but it is
Right.
no longer in a phase where it actually can.
Yeah. So the
So
leaves were there, indicating like that it should be there, but it's not there. So he had to. The indicator was that
yeah.
it's not bearing fruit, so he
Yeah.
needs to take it out.
And the trick we'll see here too is that he is talking in a metaphor as well. He's not
Right.
actually removing a fig tree, and
Right.
it was taken as being literal. So the next line is, and he said to it, from now and forever, let no man eat of your fruit. And his disciples heard it. Um, these other ones, yeah, let no man eat fruit from thee. Uh, no man eat fruit of thee hereafter forever. So these are the original English translations, and then later it was translated into cursed. So they read that he said this, no man will eat fruit hereafter forever. And the people of that time then said, oh, he cursed the fig tree. So that's what we're going to translate it as. Jesus cursed the fig tree.
Hmm.
So, um, yeah, cursed is actually and he said. And then it holds therefore now henceforth. So it's saying throughout time. And so then people are portraying that as he cursed the fig tree by saying it's removed forever. It's punished forever. It's banished forever for eternity. It's damned for eternity. So the sentence is saying from now on no one will eat fruit from you. And so the uh, where are we? So in English Bibles, it says more of forever, that he's saying you will not eat fruit from you forever. But in Aramaic, it actually translates to in this era or in the world as it now operates. So it's not saying damned for eternity. It's actually saying removed for now. Right now, this is no longer providing nourishment. So the fact that it no longer nourished life and therefore no longer functioned as a source of authority.
Mm.
Okay, so then
That's the allegory right there.
yeah. And
Hmm.
um so one he said he saw a certain fig tree. He said, "Let there be no fruit upon thee again forever," and immediately that fig tree withered. So everything's saying, and immediately that fig tree withered. So let there be no fruit on you again forever, and shortly the fig tree withered. Um, So again, you will no longer bear fruit from now on in this age. You are no longer functioning as something that produces nourishment. So English makes it sound like he said that the tree was punished. It's closer to the truth becomes visible and the lack of life showed itself. The lack of
Mm,
life displayed itself.
yeah, that's beautiful.
So, before we get to, yeah, here, we'll just read Debra's side notes first, because then there's one other part that I want to get to.
Okay.
So, the story of the fig tree is a good example of why the four canonical gospels often don't make a lot of sense when taken literally. These gospels are not a representation of the full depth of Yeshua's teachings. They're basically watered down teachings created to reach the public and those uninitiated into Essene and Gnostic wisdom. This is why Jesus consistently taught in metaphors, especially using nature. You have to read between the lines and literal translation from Aramaic to Greek and then English, plus knowing that one Aramaic word has four meanings sometimes doesn't make it any easier. So in this story, the fig tree represents a spiritual authority structure that still looks alive and legitimate, but no longer nourishes anyone with living truth.
Mm,
When the text says it was not the season for figs, he's talking about a dying system, which was Jewish politics and Jewish religion at that time, that is no longer meant to bear life. So when Jesus says that no one will eat fruit from it from now on, he's not condemning people, traditions, or the land. He's publicly declaring that this structure's role has ended in this phase of human development. The tree withers because once truth is spoken, what is already empty can no longer maintain the appearance of life.
ooh. I draw so many parallels to yeah to people and systems nowadays that are
Mm-hmm.
losing authority because it's so obvious that they are acting without life. Their
Yeah.
yeah their expression is lifeless, is
Yeah.
without truth.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. And it's like exact, like every part of the economy and society is this tree that's not bearing proper fruit anymore. It's like you think directly about NASA with the black hole agenda. It's like that is creating death and the idea of death and fear and control in people, and that's one of the main societal systems that's looked upon for like human evolution and human
Mm,
progression. And it's like that right there is an indicator that the society is plugged into a tree that bears this fruit of fear, essentially.
yeah. Mm,
So the other thing to finish this off with the Bible verses is that what it goes into in the other translations where it says he cursed the fig tree and removed the fig tree, and the people look at him and say, how did you do that? And he says, well, when you have faith you can move mountains. That's where the famous line comes in of you can command mountains, ask a mountain to move and it will move, whatever the line
yeah.
is. But so the translation turns from him publicly declaring truth and commanding that reality as that connected organic way to exercising power because the figs were not in season. So he wanted to remove the tree and punish it forever.
Yeah.
And then he tells the people asking him, "How did you do that? How did you?" He says, "Well, you can do it too. You can have faith and move mountains." So it's an inverted perception of those different translations,
Yeah.
and that is a direct example of a poison fruit.
Yeah. Perfectly demonstrated. It's also an example of um yeah, like that example of the distorted example falls under the thematics of like of punishment, of obeying, of being of like right and wrong, of needing salvation to come through like apologizing and recognizing your shortcomings, right? It's the whole agenda that fits into. And it's like this was just one verse. They're all kind of like this, or a lot of them are distorted in that way.
Hmm.
So it's really cool. And thank you to Deborah. I mean, this is
Yeah.
really thorough work, and this isn't something, well, it is something she did special for us, but she does this regularly. It's really cool to watch. I've seen it firsthand to for her to go deep into these translations and to go into the original language that it was spoken and received, and then to see it, you could see the watering down process, and her notes there really illustrate that. So thank you. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, definitely. Check all of her the links out. We're gonna leave them in the show notes. And yeah, she's just at the like everything that's about she's about to start putting out and doing is like the culmination of all the stuff that she's been
Yeah.
researching and mastering. And so it's like I we'll have nights where I just sit there and I just ask her questions of like, what about this? What about this? Like what about that? What about this? And about history and different things. So it's great.
And she loves it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, she
Mhm.
loves it. And so we're definitely going to do another episode with her at some point.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Okay, so we got about I guess like 15-20 minutes left.
Hmm.
Okay, so where are we at now? We just finished um these questions. Basically, it's like how many belief structures that are spiritual or scientific are unknowingly distributing poisoned insight. So that's basically where we just ended, right? Is that
Yeah.
it's poisoned information. Even if the knowledge is true and the information is true, it's not connected to God and it's not connected to the source frequency, so it's coming out with a poisoned energy. It's going to come out with that frequency of separation, and it's going to be another poisoned apple that someone else can just bite into and then receive that frequency of separation. So the thing that comes up next is about karma and reincarnation, and how it's an organic function and also this hijacked function, right? And so it's like if we're being distributed poisoned fruit and we don't know what is the effect of that, what is the result of that. And I think we've gotten to that with the black hole agenda, with death recycling matrices, which we're going to get into a little bit more here, but with people not knowing how to die, people fearing death and what that does to a soul and how it distances and fragments itself. So we're here on this karma and reincarnation path of wisdom. We're ascending, others are ascending, others are not going to ascend. They're going to go back into that loop. So, how does this poison fruit play into this path of karma and reincarnation?
I can speak very easily from my perspective is that I didn't know it could be another way. So if you're kept in the dark with this, then of course you have to keep recycling and learning the lessons. But the ultimate lesson that I'm realizing is to find a lifetime or to exist in a lifetime where you shed this agenda and realize I think we referred to it as the golden dawn in the past, right? So the truth actually shining through, where death is not the ruler of us, and neither is pain.
Mm-hmm.
And we're lucky. I feel really lucky enough in this lifetime to be experiencing this right now. And we're also able to receive it because of the healing that we've done and the commitment to our devotion to God. There will be people who watch this episode or become privy to this information that aren't able to process or even accept this as the reality, that this is not the reality. The poison network, it
Mm-hmm.
feels, and you mentioned it feels so true. There's truth in it, but because of the intention behind it, it's poisonous and it will keep being poisonous. So the way to stop cycling and going through these karmas and reincarnation is to arrive at this truth of what's actually real once this poison fruit agenda and network and matrix falls away
Mm-hmm.
and loses its power over us.
Yeah, well said. So is someone's attachment or like trap in the karma and reincarnation loop, is that directly correlated to the concept of gravity and so I'm thinking like how does the attachment to gravity create karma and reincarnation loops? Like
Hmm.
what is that doing to the process?
I don't know. I could try to make up an answer.
What would be the answer that comes to you?
Ask it one more time. So is gravity or how is gravity part of the process? Is
Yeah,
that what
like is it? Like I feel that it is. Like it's like this we're getting to I think a crux of this poison apple
Yeah. Yeah.
is the gravity and
Yeah.
how we've thought this gravity thing and the black hole thing was just the way that reality functioned. But now we're starting to pull away from that. So what are we less likely to experience if we have less of a gravitational pull that
Mm,
we think we're being sucked into?
yeah. I think my answer would relate to like a lucid dream state where you feel like you know you're dreaming and you can do whatever you want in this dream.
Mhm.
And part of that is like flying and like moving about the world in that way. So to bring that into our waking state, it doesn't seem possible. It's like, well, that would be great, but we have to comply with this thing that we don't have control over. And that's all it is it's based in control. If I want to fly, go up in my Merkaba, if I want to ascend off the ground, it feels like I have to comply. I'm controlled by gravity. So is
Mhm.
gravity the ultimate control?
Mhm. Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. And you answered the question I have written is what is gravity created from? And it's created from control. But then it's like what comes first, the chicken or the egg? Because we're trying to control something because we fear something or we like I think about in terms of shame, right? Like shame and guilt. And if we have so much shame and guilt and we are identified with that, then and we're trying to control that, that is a gravitational field. That is someone holding a black hole consciousness because they're pulling things into their orbit through the separation of shame and of guilt and punishment. So yeah, what is gravity created from? Is it from I guess it would just be from control because it's not shame, it's the holding on to shame that then kind of starts to pull everything into it.
Yeah. I want to work my way through understanding gravity because it sounds like the way we're talking about it, it was somebody or something or a group of things intended for gravity to exist. And I guess I'm thinking of me being on this earth, but you're talking more in an emotional sense, which is they're related, right? But like
Yeah.
I need to connect those two things
Yeah.
here.
They are related because it's like the more heavy emotions we have, the more weighted down we are.
Yeah.
And the more we're going to be aligned to a timeline of control because that's just how we think reality functions. It's like, oh, we just because because people have mistaken the choice with control, right? So they're just trying to control. So they're doing that from an emotional sense. And then that is preventing them from then experiencing a life without that gravitational pull because it's directly related to how they're projecting things externally,
Yes.
which would be that uh, the reality is controlling us and that we don't have a choice in that inevitability of control.
Whoa. I I still feel like that some way. I've done tons of trauma healing and shame and guilt, but I still feel that reality has a control over us.
So that's where, which brings us to our next question, which is what do we do with all of this?
Yeah.
If we're focused on not having to reincarnate from a karmic loop and we are focused on ascension, and you just mentioned that you still feel those feelings come up and those thoughts, then what is our ultimate way of releasing that poison tree and getting rid of that poison tree?
I think I declared this an episode or two ago with like bringing awareness to it, breathing into it, um, and then just being subjected to multiple exposures of where this is showing up. and then letting it separate from my identity of it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's and that's a detailed way of saying it's all happening inside of you. It's like if we don't get to a place, I mean, we do eventually get to a place where there's way more of it happening outside of us than on an individual level, but we're going to keep being exposed to where that parasite is within our body, within our field. And
Yeah.
the more we're willing to actually look at that, feel it, acknowledge the hard stuff, and then move through it with love, then the more externalized that parasite becomes, and the less we're going to be experiencing that on the inside. So then automatically our circumstances are going to shift to reflect that internal tree of life that is no longer trying to control things. So we're still going to see the parasite, we're going to know it's there, but it's like fear and control. Like we don't need to use it anymore, but we've identified with it so deeply that we think it's an inevitable part of our experience. So that's the part that we're grappling with.
Yeah. Okay. So let's bridge it. You just did this, but I need a little bit more help here. So bridging the emotional internal experience versus the external. So my external perception is like, oh my gosh, gravity. Like I can't even imagine lifting off the ground at my choice. So that means there's an internal belief related to my emotions about that. Could that be like I don't feel worthy or I don't think things are possible or like what is a good question, maybe like journal question to help me qualify how what I'm perceiving externally is actually coming from my internal?
Limitation. It all comes down to limitation. Where am I limiting myself over and over and over? Where am I limiting myself? Because in reality, if you're not limiting yourself, then you'd be able to imagine, there's that word again, imagine, um, a reality where you can fly in your Merkaba and you can be in a healed state and you can be in bliss and joy and have a balance of emotions. Like you're imagining that that's even possible. And so if you can't even imagine that that's possible, then that means you're accepting a limitation about yourself,
Mm.
plain and simple.
And is that the emotion or is there an emotion and belief related to it that I can identify in myself?
There's always going to be both. Wherever there's a belief, there's going to be an emotion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's probably different for each individual, but is there a theme of like, is it unworthiness? Is it possibility? Like, is there
Yeah. I,
some
I would say it's shame.
shame?
Yeah. It's shame that then creates all malice. Like something gets to malice because it first feels so shameful that it then has to enact malice. And so
Mm,
shame is at the core of this service to self tree, at the service to self matrix. So it's funny, they think they're passing off mastery and control and but they're just handing out fruit of shame. And everyone is just so shameful of themselves
mm,
that they are trying to control the way that they're perceived and they're trying to control reality. So
yeah.
at its core it's shame.
Okay. I want to maybe we could leave these in the notes too. So two really good questions. Where am I limiting myself over and over and over? And then where do I still experience shame?
Yeah.
And that's
Where do I identify with shame?
uh
Because we might experience it like again, like the level that I experience it now, it's like fucking a tiny little spark compared to what I used to experience.
right.
But it will come up and then I feel it and then it's like, oh, I don't really need to attach to that or identify with it. But I was so ingrained in the identity that I needed to feel shame about things.
Let's can we go just a layer deeper as I love to
Yeah.
do on the podcast. So shame in something that has happened to me that I'm really embarrassed about or that I'm afraid to speak out loud. Is that how we would identify shame?
Yeah. Yeah. Embarrassment, shame, feeling almost like unworthy that it's even like happening to you. Like, Yeah, it's shame. It's the ultimate sense of judgment towards the self.
Yeah.
Because
Mm.
that's the void that then needs everything else to be filled. If we don't have the fullness of who we are, then we're trying to add that on externally. So
Yeah.
it's always going to be control is always going to be connected to some level of embarrassment or humiliation.
Mm.
Even if it's
Interesting.
masked as anger or anything like that, it's always going to be connected to our relationship with ourself and our capabilities, and then how we're perceived by the world and the ones closest to us.
There's a scene in the second Dune where the one of the mothers goes to see like the evil guy and like to see how he can be controlled. And one of the things that came up was I think it was power was one
Hmm.
or related to that, and the other one was shame, like
Yeah.
something I don't think they articulated what he was ashamed about, but that was what he was exposed to. So very
Hmm.
interesting how much of a yeah, I'm really seeing that clearly now, how much you can be controlled by your humiliation and your shame.
Hmm.
Wow.
Yep. And that's why everything in this service to self system is based off of shame and humiliation. It's
That's
like,
what we're talking with like Epstein Island, right? Like that's how bribery works. Like everybody is initiated into a shameful experience so that everybody now is almost in it together and nobody speaks a word or says anything about another person's shame or yeah, their malice, because that's
yeah.
what comes next.
Yeah. And then on like the higher levels, if you're being initiated into like a service to self, like overlord or like master up to the next level, you then go through a humiliation ritual. Like
Right,
it's
right,
fraternizing,
right.
it's hazing, it's humiliation. And so it's like the Chris Rock Will Smith thing. That was a humiliation ritual for Chris Rock
Yeah,
because Chris Rock had just given his DNA over to the reptilians and sacrificed himself so a reptilian could shapeshift into the DNA of Chris Rock. He transitioned, he shifted. And so that reptilian was then being initiated into the next level of their life, of their role. And Will Smith is a draconian master. He's a draconian overlord. He's a head honcho. So he's the one that got to humiliate Chris Rock in that process.
interesting.
Yeah.
I'm also thinking of Eminem had to wear a dress or like kiss somebody, kiss a man, I think at one point. There's
Yeah,
like another
and then in the interview, he has the scene where he's like, yeah, he like comes out as gay. He's like, I'm gay. It's like they had multiple instances where he was going through a humiliation ritual, and
right.
he did the same thing. He also sacrificed himself. The Eminem we see now is a cloned version of Eminem, and he was actually an organic person that kind of did it out of like trying to save his daughter and shit
You're
like
right.
that. But yeah, it's the same thing. Same thing.
Well, a lot of things are converging for me here, and I like always can't wait to watch this back again. Any conclusions? Anything we haven't hit yet? How do we tie this in a bow here?
No, I think that's perfect. It leads us right into the next episode, which I think would be about the Golden Dawn. And we went into dusk. We kind of went into the black hole.
Yeah,
We ventured into the unknown, and now we're gonna unveil what we've all experienced before, but in a new way. And it's going to be that return of the sun that is the inevitability through that shift and that transition process. So we've reached the top of the reverse tree of life, and we're now going to feel like the rain and the growth of these golden trees and the golden leaves and the golden fruit. So that's what we're going to get into, the golden dawn, what wisdom actually is, real wisdom, and what real ascension actually is, and what that actually means.
super exciting. That's really fucking exciting. In the meantime, I need to go heal whatever shame is still left there. I'm gonna go dig in here.
Same.
Um, Always a pleasure. Episode 12 is in the books. We'll see you next week.
See you later, everybody.
Peace.